All right, strap yourselves in, folks, because today we are diving headfirst into one of history's greatest mysteries, the Mary Celeste. But with a twist, a real head-scratcher.
That's right, we're not just rehashing the same old ghost ship story, oh no.
This is a deep dive into the facts, the theories, and, even some of the more outlandish ideas surrounding this infamous vessel.
We're talking about a real ship, in good condition, just abandoned in the middle of the Atlantic back in 1872.
The Dei Gracia, that was the ship that found her, came across the Mary Celeste, just drifting, sails billowing, but not a soul on board.
And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Cargo intact, supplies plentiful, a lifeboat missing, but the crew vanished. Poof. Gone without a trace.
And to make things even more bizarre, there's a reported sighting of the Mary Celeste after it was recovered. Can you believe that?
I know, it sounds like something straight out of a sea shanty, but the Mary Celeste wasn't some rickety old ghost ship from a bygone era. It was a brigantine.
A two-masted sailing ship, common for trade in those days, sturdy and reliable.
Imagine finding a perfectly functional 18-wheeler in the middle of the highway.
Engine running, keys in the ignition, snacks on the dashboard.
But the driver, nowhere to be seen. That's the Mary Celeste in a nutshell.
So let's set the stage. December 5th, 1872. The Dei Gracia finds the Mary Celeste drifting about 400 miles east of the Azores.
The Azores, now those islands are a sailor's dream. Well, except for the unpredictable weather, I mean.
Right. Stunning beauty and fierce storms all rolled into one.
They were a crucial stop for transatlantic voyages back in the day, but also known for sudden squalls and strong currents that could catch you off guard.
And you know sailors, a superstitious bunch, right? Can you imagine the rumors flying around the docks when the Dei Gracia returned with an empty Mary Celeste in tow?
Oh, I bet the taverns were abuzz with stories, each one more fantastical than the last.
Now, the last log entry on the Mary Celeste was from November 25th, placing it near the Azores, just like you said.
But those missing days, that's the real enigma, isn't it?
Silence. No distress signals, no signs of a struggle, no SOS, nothing. Just an eerie, quiet.
It's like the crew stepped off the stage in the middle of a play, leaving the audience bewildered.
So let's talk theories. The good old-fashioned kind, shall we?
Oh, there's no shortage of those when it comes to the Mary Celeste. Let's start with the classic, piracy.
Yo-ho-ho, and a bottle of... Wait, what was the cargo again?
Industrial alcohol, barrels of it, not exactly pirate booty you'd sing about.
Not the kind of treasure that makes you want to bury it on a deserted island.
Exactly, but still valuable, yet it was untouched. Even the crew's personal belongings were left behind. Now, that's not how pirates operate, is it?
No, those swashbuckling scoundrels wouldn't leave a gold tooth behind, let alone barrels of valuable alcohol.
So if not pirates, maybe mutiny.
Did the crew turn on Captain Benjamin Briggs? But he was an experienced captain, a family man. He even had his wife and young daughter on board.
Briggs was known for his seamanship and his piety. There's no hint of trouble brewing among the crew in any records.
And besides, if they mutinied, wouldn't they have taken the ship? Sailed off into the sunset with their ill-gotten prize.
This is where the Mary Celeste sails out of the realm of typical maritime mysteries and into something much, much stranger.
All right, so let's rule out pirates and mutiny. What about something out of their control? What about one of those monstrous rogue waves? I mean, those things are the stuff of nightmares.
Absolutely. Rogue waves, those towering walls of water that seem to appear out of thin air, capable of swallowing a ship whole.
But wouldn't a rogue wave have left the Mary Celeste in splinters? Or at least seriously battered?
You'd think so, wouldn't you? But the damage to the Mary Celeste was actually quite minor.
Mostly to the rigging, some water damage, a broken compass, that sort of thing.
A rogue wave would have left a much bigger mark, that's for sure.
Okay, rogue waves are out, but what about a sudden, violent storm? I mean, the Azores are notorious for their volatile weather.
True, but remember the ship's log. No mention of any severe weather in the days leading up to the disappearance.
No frantic scribbles about gale-force winds or mountainous seas.
And here's another thing. They left a lifeboat behind. If a storm was so bad they had to abandon ship, wouldn't they take every bit of safety equipment they could?
So we can cross off the usual suspects? Pirates, mutiny, even the fury of Mother Nature.
It seems like every logical explanation just evaporates, like sea mist under the midday sun.
Exactly. So how do we explain a seasoned captain like Briggs abandoning a perfectly seaworthy ship? What's the missing piece of this puzzle?
Well, some folks like to venture into the world of sea monsters, giant squid, or even alien abductions. But let's be real, those are more for late-night campfire stories than for serious exploration.
Right, we're trying to stick to, well, At least somewhat plausible explanations, though this whole thing is pretty unbelievable.
That's the thing about the Mary Celeste. It's so captivating because the mundane just doesn't seem to fit, does it?
It's like trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. It just doesn't work. So where do we go from here?
Well, this is where that 1874 sighting comes in, and things get really, really interesting.
Right. Because remember, the real Mary Celeste was salvaged and continued sailing for another 13 years.
It was deliberately wrecked in 1885. So if that's the case, what in Neptune's name did those sailors see in 1874? That's what we need to figure out.
And that's where we'll pick things up next time on the deep dive.
See you then.
Bye, everyone. Okay, so where were we? Oh, yeah. Ghost ships and a healthy dose of the unexplained.
A real maritime mystery on our hands, that's for sure.
But before we jump back into the spectral deep end, maybe we should try to ground ourselves a bit, explore some less supernatural theories surrounding the crew's disappearance.
Sounds like a plan. Let's get back to basics, maybe take another look at that cargo, the industrial alcohol, remember?
Oh, yeah, those barrels and barrels of it.
Well, some folks believe that fumes from the alcohol could have leaked, you know?
Creating a fear of an explosion. So they abandoned ship thinking they were about to go up in flames.
That's the idea, but there are some pretty big holes in that theory.
Yeah, like why wouldn't they have mentioned those leaking fumes in the logbook? And wouldn't the De Gracia have noticed something, a strong smell, something?
Exactly. And Captain Briggs was a seasoned sailor. He wouldn't panic over a minor alcohol leak. He would have known how to handle it.
Right. He wouldn't just abandon ship at the first whiff of alcohol, especially not with his family on board.
Makes you wonder if there was something else, something they weren't telling us in that logbook.
Okay, so if not alcohol fumes, what about a medical emergency? Could there have been a contagious disease? Something that forced them to seek help from another ship?
Interesting theory, but again, there's no evidence to support that.
And think about it. If they were desperate for medical help, wouldn't they have left some sort of message behind? A note, a signal, anything?
The silence on the Mary Celeste is deafening, and that's what makes this whole thing so bizarre.
It really is. It's like they just vanished into thin air, not a peep, not a trace.
It's almost as if the sea swallowed them whole and decided to keep its secrets.
Speaking of the sea, what about natural phenomena? Could it have been an underwater earthquake, volcanic activity, something sudden and catastrophic?
Well, the Azores are in a volcanically active region, so it's not entirely out of the question.
So maybe they thought they were facing imminent disaster and just launched the lifeboat in a desperate attempt to escape to a nearby island?
It's possible, but there's no record of any major seismic activity in the area around that time.
And even if there was, wouldn't the ship show signs of damage consistent with that kind of event?
That's the thing. The Mary Celeste was found largely intact. No huge cracks, no signs of a major collision or anything like that.
It's like every theory we explore just hits a dead end, like trying to sail through a wall of fog, no visibility, just confusion.
And that's what makes the 1874 sighting even more baffling, because if we can't explain the crew's disappearance, how do we explain a sighting of the ship 2 years later?
With a different crew.
That's right, an entirely different crew. And get this, the same eerie silence.
Wait, are we saying that the Mary Celeste was found again, crewed, but still just as quiet and mysterious?
According to the stories, that's exactly what happened.
So are we back to square one then? Back to ghost ships and spectral echoes? Are we saying the logical explanations just aren't enough?
Not necessarily, remember. There's still the possibility of mistaken identity.
You mean those sailors in 1874? They could have just seen a different ship and thought it was the Mary Celeste.
It's highly possible the seas were full of sailing ships back then, many of them brigantines, just like the Mary Celeste.
And if a ship was weathered, slightly damaged, it could easily be mistaken for another, especially at a distance, right?
Especially if the people on board were already familiar with the story of the Mary Celeste, primed to see what they expected to see.
Right, it's like when you lose your keys and suddenly you see keys everywhere you look, your mind playing tricks on you.
Our brains love to find patterns and make connections, even when they're not really there.
And when you're at sea for weeks or months on end, well, it's not hard to imagine how exhaustion, fear, and the vastness of the ocean could play tricks on your mind.
Sailors in those days were tough, but they were also a superstitious bunch. And let's face it, the ocean is full of mystery.
And the Mary Celeste, with its vanishing act, well, it was ripe for becoming a legend.
A sea shanty whispered in hushed tones from port to port, a warning to all who dared to tempt fate on the open water.
So are we saying that this 1874 sighting was just a case of nerves getting the better of those sailors? Or was it something more unsettling, something that defies explanation?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And the answer, well, it may forever remain lost at sea.
So here we are at the edge of the known world, facing a mystery that seems to defy all logic.
The Mary Celeste, a real ship with a very unreal story.
We have facts, dates, log entries, and yet
The heart of the matter remains elusive.
it's like we're trying to grasp at fog. It just slips through our fingers.
That's the beauty of it, isn't it? A story that forces us to confront the limits of our understanding.
We crave those neat explanations, those tidy little boxes to put things in, but the Mary Celeste just refuses to be categorized.
It pushes us, dares us to consider that there might be things out there, things we simply can't grasp with our current way of thinking.
I mean, we live in a world of data, of scientific breakthroughs, but there are still mysteries that just completely stump us.
Some stories, they just can't be reduced to cold, hard facts.
And maybe that's okay. Maybe that's where the real value lies.
Not in finding the definitive answer, but in the journey of exploration itself.
Embracing the unknown, questioning our assumptions, maybe that's the real treasure here.
You know, it's funny you should say that because I think Captain Briggs himself might have embodied that very spirit.
Oh, how so?
Well, here's a man, deeply religious, a devoted family man, and yet he chose a life at sea, one of the most unpredictable and unforgiving environments imaginable.
He certainly wasn't afraid of a little risk, that's for sure.
It suggests a certain comfort with the unknown, wouldn't you say? A willingness to face the unpredictable head-on?
Maybe that's the lesson the Mary Celeste is trying to teach us.
To be a little more open to the possibility that not everything has a simple answer.
To embrace the mystery. To accept that there are things we may never fully understand.
And in that acceptance, we might find a sense of liberation.
Freedom from the need to have all the answers. The need for absolute certainty.
It allows us to appreciate the wonder, the strangeness, the sheer beauty of the universe, even in its most perplexing moments.
You know, it's amazing how this story, the Mary Celeste, has resonated for over a century. It's still captivating people today.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know, maybe it taps into something primal, a deep-seated fear of the unknown that we all share.
The ocean, with its vastness, its depths, it's always been a source of both wonder and terror for humanity.
The Mary Celeste, with its vanished crew, its ghostly echoes, it embodies that fear in a way that few other stories can.
But there's also an element of fascination, isn't there? We're drawn to the mystery even as it chills us to the bone.
It's like a moth to a flame. We can't resist the allure of the unexplained, even when it makes us a little uneasy.
It's the same impulse that drives us to tell ghost stories, to seek out the supernatural, the thrill of confronting the unknown, of testing the boundaries of what we think we know.
And the Mary Celeste offers that thrill in spades. It's both unsettling and strangely alluring.
A puzzle box with a missing key.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the Mary Celeste, I want to leave you, our listeners, with a final thought. Do you think the 1874 sighting was just a case of mistaken identity, a trick of the light on the waves?
Or was it something more? A ghostly echo of a tragedy lost to time.
A ripple in the fabric of reality?
A sign that there are forces at play in this universe that we may never fully comprehend.
It's a question without a definitive answer, a mystery that may forever remain unsolved.
But the Mary Celeste is more than just a ghost story. It's a reminder that the world is full of wonder, full of things that defy explanation.
It's an invitation to embrace the unknown, to keep our minds open to the possibility of the impossible.
And to never stop questioning, never stop exploring the mysteries that lie just beyond the horizon.
Thank you for joining us on this journey into the heart of the Mary Celeste.
We hope you've enjoyed the ride.
Until next time, keep your curiosity alive and your eyes on the stars.